Ah! Fine, I'm out of here.
Fine by me! I never needed you anyway. Only kept him around for the damn pun. What's wrong, Nick? Oh, nothing, other Nick. It's just Cody's leaving the red and black, so Sus Pace Jam and our long, long friendship is effectively over. That's rough. Yeah, who needs him? We're the real stars of the show anyway, right? Right? Buddy, I'm just a figment of your imagination. Oh yeah, right. You might need some help. What did I just say? I don't need Cody. I never have. And I never will. No, man. I mean psychologically, you've been talking to your inner monologue a lot more than usual. Shut up, subconscious. I don't need help from no one. No one. No one.
I don't even miss him.
What do I need him for? He was not the important part.
I mean, we still could have been friends. He's just acting insane.
I don't even need him. It can just be Sus Jam. That still works. Well, get back on your side of the room.
We should have picked a bigger room.
I don't care. This is the only room we had with a natural divider. I got it. YouTube.
Cody, we did it.
What did we do?
We're the stars of the Tonight Show.
Really?
Yeah, this
Where's
is...
the audience?
Oh no, so Space Jam. Our show's on YouTube now.
What does that mean?
It means that people see our smiling faces. No, it's okay. It's okay for people to see Cody. Put no turtleneck in it. We're okay. Welcome to Sus Space Jam, everybody. This is our first video podcast. It's for those of you who are familiar with the old podcast that we used to do at the Red and Black. Not much is going to change. You're just going to see the things Cody mouths at me in between takes on the shot. I'm Nick Suss. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Red and Black. This is Cody Pace. Describe yourself.
I do things.
Cody does things. He works for Macon Telegraph. He works for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He does stuff. You'll see our writing around. We will make sure to talk about it. But today, we're talking Sus Pace Jam. And the first order of business, we're going to play a little bit of a game.
I like games. Do I get to throw things at you in this game?
Depends on whether or not you want to.
I always want to throw things at you. I don't see anything to throw.
So to begin every episode of Sus Pace Jam, we're going to play a little bit of a game. Today we're going to play a game we've been working on for a few months now. It's called What'll It Take? Where we're going to propose a scenario of something that can or can't happen in college football this year. And we're going to explain what we think it would take for that to happen. Cody, what will it take for this game to actually be watched all the way to the end by our viewers?
A miracle.
A miracle. Okay, that's not one of the questions. Cody, I will propose you our first question. It's really important to you, the UGA fans among you. Cody, what will it take for Nick Chubb to win the Heisman Trophy?
All right. I think that in order for Nick Chubb to win the Heisman, you're going to have to see Sony Michel and Keith Marshall get hurt.
Okay.
I think Nick Chubb has to be the back he was last year in terms of getting, close to 30 carries a game in order to do that. And I think they're going to split carries between the three of them to try to keep all three of them fresh throughout the season so they're available later. So I don't think you're going to see them ride Nick Chubb in some of those games, and especially early in the season when you have games like UL Monroe and Southern University in the first 4 weeks. Odds are Nick Chubb may get like 10 carries in those games. When the reality is, if he was the only back, he could put up 400 yards in a game like that.
You say that.
So, I mean,
you say that.
Stat padding is important.
You say that, but think about the numbers that Gurley put up last year in the early season. And I know Clemson and South Carolina were big factors, but Gurley put up almost 100 yards against Troy and against these lesser teams. It's not out of the question to think Chubb would be able to do the same on 10 carries. And I personally believe Nick Chubb still will be the feature back. Friends of the podcast on the old channel know that I'm the biggest Sony Michel supporter there's ever been, and that Keith Marshall, way back, I've been supporting him since he was a freshman. But Nick Chubb's the feature back right now.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the player that's going to get 25 carries a game, I think, regardless of Sony.
See, I don't think he gets 25. I don't think he gets 25 carries a game, though. I think between Sony and Keith, assuming Keith is healthy, now this changes if Keith doesn't get on the field early in the season. But I think you're talking about at least 15 carries combined between the two of those guys.
That's fair, and I think that 25 plus 15 is just about the number of times they should be running per game. I don't know if the passing attack is going to be that potent. My number is 20 touchdowns or 2,000 yards. If Chubb either gets 20 touchdowns or 2,000 yards, I think he's a lock to be a Heisman finalist. Whether or not he wins really depends on some factors we're going to be talking about a little bit later.
Are those all-purpose yards and touchdowns?
All-purpose.
Okay.
All-purpose touchdowns, not all-purpose
It's like
yards.
2,000
rushing yards, 20 all-purpose touchdowns.
Okay, that's fair. All right, now we're moving on to the second question here. Nick, what would it take for Ohio State to repeat as national champions?
I think I have a little looser of a threshold than you do for this. I think Ohio State can repeat as national champions so long as they make it to the playoff. And to make it to the playoff, I think all they'll need to do is win the Big Ten and beat both Michigan and Michigan State. I think this could be a one-loss team. Arguably, I think it could be a two-loss team and still make it. It would be tough. But if a two-loss Big Ten team wins the Big Ten, we're seeing a possibility depending on the weakness of the year. I don't think this needs to be an undefeated team. I think they can lose a gimme early in the season, be it to Virginia Tech again, be it to another team early in the schedule. I don't think this is a team that needs to be perfect. They're going to get the quality points of having won last year, and that will always reflect one.
Yeah, and I agree with that part. I think ultimately they probably need to be a one-loss team. But I will say that a lot of that depends on what you see out of the Big 12 this year. Do they have a real champion? Is there one team that comes out of the Big 12 that is the team that there's no doubt this is the team that's going to be in that can actually claim their conference championship? And I think it depends a lot on the ACC because there's some question marks with Florida State maybe being down this year. You don't know what Everett Golson's going to bring. Clemson's one of those teams a lot of people are high on, but with a first-year starter quarterback, sort of.
Yeah, it's a first and a half.
First and a half. You don't know exactly what you're going to get, and they lost a lot on defense last year with Vic Beasley and Greg Jarrett both gone. So I think I think a lot of it actually really depends on what those two conferences do, because I think if there's a convincing team out of both of those conferences, then Ohio State still needs to be a one-loss team. But I think there is some room for that second loss in there if those two conferences are a little weaker.
I think there are only two teams in America that could make the playoff with two losses, and they're Ohio State and Alabama.
That's fair.
Everybody would agree that is probably within the realm of possibility.
And depending on the schedule, I think Auburn also might be able to, because Auburn plays a pretty tough schedule.
I'm not as high on Auburn as you are, but I understand that, yes. Speaking of Auburn, speaking of Alabama, here's coming an SEC question for you. Cody, what will it take for Vanderbilt to win the Southeastern Conference in football? Baseball, I think they could win it pretty easily. Football, what will it take for Vandy to win?
Zombie apocalypse.
Explain?
Hold on. There's a caveat on this. It has to be a zombie apocalypse that destroys everything except for Nashville.
Except for Nashville. Okay. Why doesn't the zombie apocalypse destroy Nashville?
Because they have absolutely zero interest in Vandy football and the Titans suck.
But most cities have zero interest in Vandy football. It's not just a Nashville thing.
Yeah, but the zombies are interested in everything else. They take care of everything else, have no interest in crossing into Nashville.
So the zombies have no
Yes.
interest. It's not that there's no fan interest. Okay.
Sorry. No, zombies have no interest in Nashville.
So
therefore they
football
leave the beat.
snob zombies leave Nashville alone. And how does this result in a Vandy SEC championship?
They're the only team left. They win all of their games by default and go undefeated.
So they win by default, or do they play the zombified teams? Because I'm assuming Zombie Missouri will still field a team.
I'm not sure if Zombie Missouri would field a team.
Zombie
I feel like Zombie Gary Pinkel would be kind of lazy.
I feel like Zombie Gary Pinkel would really care about the pass rushing even more, because now you could get to the brains.
Yeah. Did you really just say get to the brains?
I did.
Do I really have to work with this?
Cody, that's zombie concern. Not get to the quarterback, get to the brains.
That's fair enough.
It's fair
But
enough.
they're wearing helmets.
That's
It's gonna
true.
be really hard.
I will concede you that point. It's hard, but I'm sure zombies have the ability to claw a helmet. I wasn't going to rip your face off.
I was a little concerned.
Don't jump, because I'm not going to rip your face off. But so, okay. Vanderbilt goes undefeated against a team of what if a zombie bites someone on the arm on Vanderbilt and a Vanderbilt player turns into a zombie? Do you think he'd be loyal to Zombie Missouri because it's his fellow zombies or his ex-teammates?
That's a good question. He's still a Vandy player. He can't play for the other team. They don't have a jersey for him or a helmet for him. Like that's a logistical nightmare.
Okay, that is true. And zombies are notorious for being a little slow. So if regular Vandy could, hit the edge, Zombie Missouri probably wouldn't be able to take the right angle.
And I'm also assuming that the zombies are going to play by the rules. They're just going to be limited by their lack of athletic ability.
Would the
They're not gonna
zombies have
bite.
to wear helmets? Because
Yes.
if they wore helmets, it'd be really tough to bite.
Yes, they have to wear helmets. It's really only fair.
Okay, I concede the point. Vanderbilt wins the SEC if a zombie apocalypse affects everywhere but Nashville, Tennessee.
All right, so speaking of things that are slightly more possible than Vandy winning the SEC this year, Nick, what would it take for Marcus Mariota to repeat as the Heisman winner this year?
So former Oregon quarterback, no longer in the NCAA, Marcus Mariota. You're asking me what it takes for him to win a Heisman Trophy.
And also insisting that it is more likely to occur than Vandy winning the SEC this year.
Okay, this is a tough one, but I think you actually set up a framework of possibility for me.
Okay.
What city does Marcus Mariota play in?
He's in Nashville. I set that up with the Titans suck part of that last
Okay,
statement.
he's playing in Nashville. The apocalypse of zombies affects everyone, but Vanderbilt, high school football teams in Nashville, and the Titans. If you've only got two high-ranking football programs and then a bunch of high schools left in the country, I think that the Heisman Trophy is the most prestigious award in football, counting the NFL and college football. Why not give it to the best player remaining? And as somebody who has watched every Tennessee Titans game since the turn of the millennium, I can tell you, Marcus Mariota is probably going to be their best player that you've heard of. It's not going to be a fun year if you're a Titans fan. I'm getting too distraught. I'm going to have to...
Can they still give it to Chris Johnson anyway?
No, they can't. Chris Johnson, the football player or baseball player. Neither of them are allowed to win the Heisman Trophy.
No.
So to answer your question, Marcus Mariota repeats his Heisman if your zombie apocalypse happens. So Cody, let's go back into the realm of the possible. Here's a question for you. What will it take for an American Athletic Conference team to make it into the college football playoff?
All right, so here's the framework under which I think this would have to happen. I think it would have to be an AAC team that has at least one quality Power 5 game on its schedule. I'm not talking Vanderbilt. I'm talking a solid...
Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana. That's exactly what I'm going for. A solid Power 5 team that loses maybe 1, 2, 3 games. They would have to go undefeated. And I think that in terms of the Power 5 conferences, you would have to have at least, like the number 4 team out of the Power 5 conferences would have to have at least 2 losses.
Okay, and you're assuming that this doesn't have an outright Big 12 winner, or does that not factor in?
Yeah, I think you'd probably also have to not have an outright Big 12 winner, and that would disqualify the Big 12, and then your last team there. Or I guess it could be that the Big 12 winner is like a 2 or 3 loss team.
Yeah, to set up the possibility of an AAC team making the playoff, we would almost definitely need the ACC to have a weak year, as a lot of people are forecasting in May. We would need the Big 12 to not have an outright champ and not have 2 one-loss teams like it did last year. You'd need to have a champ with 2 losses. And either the Pac-12, SEC, or Big 10 have a champ with a loss. Or multiple champs with a loss. I don't think there could be a single undefeated team. Because if there's an undefeated SEC team and an undefeated American Athletic Conference team, then that undefeatedness is going to look a lot worse.
Exactly.
They're going to need to be the only undefeated team in America.
I think that's fair. Fair point to add. All right, Nick. What would it take for a defensive player to win the Heisman this year?
defensive player primarily, of course.
Primarily defensive player.
We've talked a lot about the Heisman today, a little bit in joke, a little bit in truth. I think that this is a really good exercise in what Heisman Trophy voters want now. Because in my mind, it is possible for a defensive player to win in two ways. I know you're going to talk about one of them. I'm going to talk about the most common possible way, which would involve a playmaking defensive back. I think you need a player a lot like Tyrann Mathieu, who is going to make a lot of tackles in and around the box, intercept a lot of passes, and be able to kick return. But he's also going to have the character of a Manti Te'o type. Have this crushing backstory that totally turns out to be true, and be the person that the Heisman voters say, oh, this is the kind of defensive player a team builds around. So I think you need a player that can play all-purpose, that can play all three phases of the game. I don't know if we have any defensive players that are going to play a lot of offense this year that are still going to be able to score touchdowns on defense. But I think that's the easiest way. Bring in a returner that intercepts passes, sometimes plays receiver, makes tackles, and reflects well on his program, unlike some in the past have. I guess I'm describing Charles Woodson.
Basically, Charles Woodson, yes. Now I'm going to talk about the second route that I think it could happen. I think this one's a lot less likely. But I think you'd have to have a J.J. Watt kind of player, a player who was dominant on the defensive line, who could get to the quarterback, who could make tackles in the backfield, and who had the capability to get up and swat balls at the line of scrimmage and pick the ball off from the line of scrimmage. I think if you had an all-around player like that with the character that J.J. Watt also has, you could see a guy who has double-digit sacks, double-digit tackles for loss, and maybe 4 or 5 interceptions. I think that could be enough if there was a down year on the offensive side. If there was a running back who didn't, the best running back maybe only gets 1,500 yards. But there's not a definite quarterback who helps lead his team to the playoff or something like that.
And I think something Cody and I both discussed when we were scripting the show out is that it will really help for a defensive player to have played in a conference championship while the best quarterback or running back in America did not. So if someone like Ndamukong Suh plays in that Big 12 championship game back when Nebraska was a Big 12 team and gets that extra game of recognition from fans, because it's going to be a lot harder for a defensive player to be recognized than an offensive player. So the players like Joey Bosa, like Scooby Wright, that are getting a little bit of preseason buzz for the Heisman, they're going to need to play in that conference championship. Hope their own quarterbacks and running backs don't take the award away from them, and then also hope that the most talented players in the country don't play that 13th game before the Heisman Trophy is given out.
Right.
Cody, let's get back to UGA for a little bit for these last 2 questions. Here's a tough one. I don't think a lot of people have this on their radar, but in the spirit of what will it take for a University of Georgia football player to be selected first overall in the 2016 NFL Draft?
Leonard Floyd.
It will take Leonard Floyd for it to happen, or Leonard Floyd will be the person for whom it could happen?
Yes.
Okay, explain.
Okay. In all seriousness, I think it would have. I think Leonard Floyd is probably the player most likely, and when I say most likely, that's still a very long shot. But what we have seen from Leonard Floyd is he has all of the athletic ability of a Jadeveon Clowney or something like that. The problem with Leonard Floyd is that he's very thin, and he struggles in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
I think in order for him to move that high in the draft, I think he's going to have to put on a lot of weight, and I think this year he's going to have to prove that he's not a liability in the run game. Now, normally I really wouldn't think that was possible, but Georgia has been moving him inside and playing him at inside linebacker some. He's also playing at the star. And I think that will help him as well because he's showing he has that versatility. He can rush off of the edge. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can play inside linebacker, and he can line up in the star. Now, I think he's also a coverage liability, or has been at least at times.
Yeah.
So I think if he can prove that he can kind of play that inside linebacker position and actually cover that inside linebacker position as well, I think that'll help him.
I think the problem with Leonard is you say versatility, I say identity crisis. I don't know what Leonard Floyd is anymore. And with Jordan Jenkins definitely going to start at one position, and with Lorenzo Carter, in my opinion, already a better pure outside linebacker than Leonard Floyd, he has an identity crisis because they need to figure out how to put their most athletic player on the field.
And I think you saw them do that at times at the end of last year where they did bump Leonard over to the star, and it worked pretty well.
It did, but I don't see a team drafting a defensive end / nickelback first overall.
Well, but I think to be fair, you have to point out that Jeremy Pruitt does not use his nickelback as a nickelback. The nickelback, when Leonard Floyd is in the nickelback, the nickelback is rushing the passer. The only other thing he may do is either play some kind of spy on the quarterback from the nickelback position, or cover a contained zone where he's just covering the screen on the outside. But he's not actually dropping back into coverage and trying to line up against your slot guy.
That's true, and we promise we won't say nickelback that many times anymore. We are done talking about nickelback. Even in that position, we'll go back to saying star. I'm going to present an alternative, one that I don't think is going to happen, but I'm going to outline a what'll it take anyway. Alternative John Theus is probably the second most likely player to be selected first overall. The justification is all positional value. He has proven he can play both left tackle and right tackle, not at first overall quality, for my money not at first round quality. But there have been players in recent memory, most notably Eric Fisher, who went first overall 2 years ago, who wasn't on anyone's radar prior to the season, that vaulted all the way up to the first pick in the draft. If John Theus has a strong season and proves against Alabama, against Florida, against Auburn, these teams that are pretty famous for having, and Missouri of course, pretty famous for having strong pass rushers, John Theus might be able to, on the merit of that tape and his tape against the aforementioned Vic Beasley and Grady Jarrett from Clemson last year, this is a player that I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak up. Does he have the ability or the size to be selected first overall? No, especially when guys like Spencer Drango at Baylor are more than likely going to be top 5 picks at the same position. But if I were to want to take Leonard Floyd or John Theus first overall, I think Theus is a safer pick.
I think Theus is the safer pick, and Leonard Floyd is the upside pick.
Oh, he's definitely the upside pick, but upside picks like Vernon Golston and Aaron Maben have worked out so well in the past for teams that wanted undersized edge rushers that could play in a few different places.
Yeah, it worked out for Von Miller, okay.
It did work out for Von Miller, except for that one year that he missed like 8 games.
Well, I don't think, I don't know Leonard personally, but I would hope that it's not going to go that route.
No, I would too, but yeah, that's probably the two most, unless you believe that, who else could it be? No one?
Jordan Jenkins, if you really like a run-stopping outside linebacker.
If you want a player who's going to do his job pretty goodly, you got.
All right, guys, last UGA question coming off of that. What would it take for Georgia to win a national championship this year?
Georgia win a national championship, I think this comes back to what I said about Ohio State. I think Georgia can win a national championship with one loss in 2 different ways. If Georgia loses a game early to either South Carolina or Alabama, runs the table and wins the SEC, I think they are in the playoff. I think everybody would agree there. I also think that Georgia makes the playoff if they lose to either South Carolina or Vandy very early, beat Alabama, run the table, but don't make the SEC championship because either South Carolina or Missouri also had one loss and gets to the SEC championship either way. And a one-loss Georgia team with a victory over Alabama and Auburn will have the strength of schedule to get into the playoff. From there, I don't know if Georgia will be able to compete with the likes of TCU and Ohio State and Oregon and these teams that are built to beat teams like Georgia, but I think they can get into the playoff so long as either of those scenarios happen.
And then from there, it's just a matter of winning your playoff games.
It is. So I think Cody will tell you the best way to win a championship is to
just win all 15 games.
Win the 15th game. Let's say that.
Well, I'm sorry. Wait, you don't have to win all 15. Win the 15th game.
Yes. If you go 15-0, more power to you. But if you learned anything from the show today, win 15 games or the 15th game, you're a national champion. That has been What'll It Take. If you have any answers to these What'll It Takes, let us know in the comments below. If you want to ask us any of your What'll It Takes.
This is comments?
No. Comments are down here. like and favorite and subscribe is over here. We're going to point in the wrong direction later. It's over here.
Okay, it's over here.
But yeah, comments below. Let us know your thoughts. If you have future What'll It Take questions for us, go ahead and ask us. Best question will come up next time we do a What'll It Take. Now, commercial break. Yeah, this show has a commercial. Deal with it.
We've got lots in store, so you better stay tuned. Simulations from up-to-date games, the year's '07, that's assumed. So, look at that catch, look at that throw, UGA versus UL Monroe, plus we got prop bets and we got stats, Nick's got theories, Cody's got facts, and there's one more thing, don't get it wrong, with every new week Nick writes a new song. It's a Space Jam!
Welcome back. Thank you for watching that advertisement for what you're already watching. This is normally the part of the show where we would play a game we like to call prop bets, where we talk about something that's happening in this week's games. But there are no games this week and no props to bet on. So we're going to play one of our favorite recurring segments from the podcast, a little thing we like to call 4 Hits and Giggles. And now to build in, here's a clip.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, as most of you saw, that was a clip of Mark Fox, Georgia's head basketball coach, diving into the pool at Ramsey on what UGA likes to call Pool Day. A great team-building exercise where they send all the freshmen and the newcomers to the team to dive off the high dive, you know, as team building. But if it's up to me, I think there are so many better ways you can indoctrinate new players and coaches into the program. There are so many great freshman experiences here at UGA. I'm going to tell a bunch of reasons why Pool Day is not the best choice. And Cody,
I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, because you're always wrong. But
I'm not always,
You're always wrong.
I'm not always. Okay, so we've all been freshmen at UGA, except if you haven't been a freshman at UGA. And one of the great traditions is all heading up to Snelling after midnight for a little bit of a celebration. You grab some donuts, you grab some breakfast at night. It's a great idea. And that's team building. You're all gathered around for a meal, breaking bread together.
Nick, not only can they do that all semester, when did they do Pool Day?
They did it before Snelling was open.
Snelling isn't open.
But, I mean, they can
But-
hold
but-
off.
No, once school starts, it's over. No, you gotta get it done before school starts.
Okay, so let's go with another idea. What if they all just line up and ring the chapel bell? The chapel bell is never closed.
What a better way to bond than to wait.
I mean, they were waiting to dive off the diving board.
Yes, but they were in the pool while they wait. They can like swim around and like.
Oh, so they dove from the pool into the pool? They were waiting in line on the diving board.
There were some. If you look back at the videos, there were like a few players on the diving board, but then there were a lot of them on the sides, standing around talking. There were some in the pool, like swimming around. What are you talking about?
All right, another great freshman tradition that I'm sure all of us but you have played. All of us gather around one freshman dorm room. We get in and we play a Super Smash Bros. Tournament. Everybody loves Super Smash Bros. There's no reason why that wouldn't be fun. And it's great team building, competition, a little bit of friendly smack talk. It's like a syndicate surrogate for football.
Or you can go to the pool.
That's just like an or. Yeah, or you could eat asparagus. But that's not more appetizing
Yes,
than
but
Super
this-
Smash Bros.
Yes, but the pool is.
Difference of opinion. This one you can't refute. Cannot refute this. Best UGA tradition if you're in favor of criminal trespassing, the trifecta. I mean, the hardest part is getting into Sanford Stadium. They do that all the time. It's called practice. Running 100 yards across Sanford Stadium would be crazy easy for them. And the other parts, pretty much no one ever gets caught on. Great team building, freshmen love to do it, upperclassmen love to do it. I've never done it because I'm, me. But tell me one good reason why why wouldn't that be a great idea?
What a better way to bond than for everyone to get arrested.
It's not arrested. They would just get, banned from Stegman. And there are worse things than getting banned from Stegman.
Yeah, but if all the football players get banned from Stegman, then football players can't go to basketball games, which means you're never going to get Mark Fox painting up for a Georgia football game again because Georgia can't reciprocate.
But then Mark Fox would paint up for like a Georgia volleyball game. And isn't that what everybody wants?
No, because nobody would see it, because nobody's there.
But then more people would go to UGA volleyball games.
I don't think that's true.
We're getting off the topic. Trifecta, better idea than pool day.
Definitely not a better idea.
Well, I mean, why is pool day so great? What makes it so fun?
It's a pool. What a better way to bond than forcing someone off of a 10-meter high dive?
That's no different than gymnastics. Why can't you force them off the uneven bars?
Because that would likely end in injury.
Well, water is gonna hurt. There were so many people terrified. Everybody on the team can walk. I can guarantee you everybody can walk. I'm not gonna guarantee you everyone can swim.
Okay, well then you don't jump off a high dive if you can't swim.
But that's the initiation. That's what happens. Okay,
Then you send John Theus in after him.
No, I guess we're never gonna. Is there anything that you would agree is a better idea than pool day?
Japanese racquetball.
Is that the? Damn it! That's the phrase of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Anytime Cody utters the phrase of the week, I owe him $5. Here's a $5 bill. I have to give it to Cody now. I'm disappointed. If you have phrase of the week suggestions, let us know in the comments.
You're not getting that back.
I guess it's as good as any time to end this show. Cody, tell them what they should do.
Subscribe. We're in the box. Okay, this is the box. The subscribe button is somewhere like out here, like outside of my hand.
It's over there.
Is it? I thought it was like anyway.
Yeah, that's over there to me. Subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. Let everybody know about the Sus Space Jam podcast.
Hashtag Sus Space Jam.
Hashtag Sus Space Jam on Twitter. Follow me on the Twitter machine. I'm at Nick Sus. He's at Cody Pace. Those are probably right there if we did the graphics correctly. This was episode 1. We make videos now. We're going to end you with a very serious message near and dear to our hearts. Let's straighten up. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing I want you to remember from the Sus Space Jam podcast, it's this. Getting a little choked up thinking about it.
It's okay. I have $5.
Don't let a suitcase filled with old cheese be your big fork and spoon. Thank you for watching.